Nik Vestberg. How are you?
Yeah, that is my name. Yeah.
Nice. Welcome. Welcome to the show, but not the studio. How are you, man?
I'm good. Yeah, yeah, it's nice to be here. I'm just relaxed. I'm at home on my own for the first time in a while.
Nice.
Busy family life normally, so it's nice to get a little break and talk to you.
Very nice. I feel kind of the same way.
My wife is taking the kids out for the afternoon. So.
Nice. Giving us a bit of time to chat about your photography and everything you've been up to, because I don't know an awful lot apart from your Instagram that my girlfriend introduced me to and was like, you need to get this guy on the podcast. So so far I'm glad I have, and then your website as well. So did you want to just introduce yourself basically and kind of fill everyone in?
Yeah, I mean, I'm Nick. I'm a Swede. I live in Sweden at the moment. I lived in the UK for 21 years until Brexit kind of messed up my life a bit. The office I worked in was closed down, and I was offered a transfer to Denmark. So me and my wife packed up and we moved to Denmark, and then we ended up in Sweden now a couple of years ago. And yeah, I'm not a photographer by trade at all. I don't work in photography. I just do it as a passion, and I've been doing it since I was a kid. Basically, I got my first camera when I was 10, and I've always been that annoying one that always has a camera with them. I mean, these days everyone has a camera all the time, but I did that when we were kids, before the phones. So.
Very nice. And then kind of, I mean, it seems you're playing it very cool by saying you're just a guy with a camera, but you've also done quite a lot in terms of, exhibited work and the zines as well, and various other things that push it a little bit further, just being a guy with a camera.
Yeah, but I don't know. It's tricky. I think, like, these days, it's not actually that difficult to just go out and do stuff. When you tell people, like, oh yeah, I was in a band, I made several records, they go like, wow. You're like, anyone can do a record. You just have to find the money and make a record. There's nothing stopping you, and that's the beauty with zines as well. You don't have to look for a publisher. You don't have to look for a market or an audience. You can
just get up and do it.
Most people, I have zines that I haven't sold a copy of, but I printed them, and it's nice to just get that out, out of your head, if anything.
Yeah, that's that was an interesting thing, because like I said, I was looking at your Japan issue of Photos Make Great Pets, which is like your long run series, and on the PDF on the first page, it writes about this idea that although you never officially printed it, although you made your personal copy, but on the first page it said you just had this kind of nagging feeling just to get it out in some form.
Yeah, I mean, it took a while. I only put it up on the website maybe last year or so, and it was this thing I wrote when we went to Japan like 8 years ago now, I think, and I wrote a diary when we were there, and I was really into Japanese photography even then, and I wanted to do this combination of a travel diary and a photo scene. And I was always really happy with it, but then it just never quite happened. I did the whole layout, and then I lost it, and I couldn't figure out how to print it properly, and it just lay there, and I was like, maybe it's not meant to be seen, So I have my own, private copy that I had, that's the only printed copy that exists in the world.
That's such a cool thing to see.
But it was nice. I mean, because Japan, I always wanted to go there, and it was like a whole sensory overload, of course. And the scene is just 20 pages, one sentence, 20-page long sentence, and the idea was to explain that sensory overload. Like, oh, then we did this, and this happened, and wow, oh, colors, and wow, weird stuff, and like. Yeah, why is there egg in everything? And this, shit, There's people in Mario Kart cars on the street. Fuck.
What is going on? And I guess as well, because like you said, you've been a fan of Japanese photography, which like I was scanning your bookshelf as soon as you logged in, and there's like that influence is apparent from what I can see from this distance. But there is like I know a few photographers, and like me included, who like that sort of era of photography is very very influential. Like now,
Yeah.
and do you feel maybe why that zine became frustrating is because there's such a expectation about what Japan is like if you're planning on traveling there, and then it's like, oh, did it? You know? Do you know what I mean? I feel like
I don't know. I don't think there was any real deep reason why it never happened. I think I was just nervous about sharing my writing, for example, which was something I had never done. And it is just really a diary. It's not anything particularly deep. You know, I went to this restaurant, I had a beer there. Yeah, so I wasn't sure. I mean, I've been thinking about it a lot since then, and like thought the idea of just making a photo scene from Japan. But yeah, in the end, now it's gone so long, I was like, I think the world will survive without my Japan scene as well, you know.
But I mean, that's always going to be left a mystery. Maybe that could have changed the world if it had released as well. But you'll never know.
Well, it's there as a PDF now.
True, it does. It is out there in the world. But it's cool. How did because obviously it's issue 6, so there's about 7 of them. I think I saw on your website. How did that? What was the thought process between making your zine sort of a series?
Oh, I mean, I used to have a music blog called Music Make Great Pets.
Okay.
And where I did review bands, and I like did interviews with bands and stuff. And I used to take a lot of gig photos and stuff. And I just thought it'd be really fun to do a printed little booklet of the music photos, and I came up with that name. And I don't know if the idea was that it was going to be a longer series, but then, you know, that one did really well. That was the first one, the music, like a live photo one that's just kind of gig photos and stuff. Back in 2015. And then I liked it, and I just made a few more. My girlfriend at the time was in a band that I saw a lot, you know, and I traveled with them all over the world, and followed them and took a lot of photos. And when they finally split up, we had split up, but I asked if I could do a big scene or book about their early years, and they were like, yeah, fine. So I did like a 100-page scene. I was just following them through their first 6 years, you know. And I sold that at their farewell shows, and that went really well. I bought a MacBook with the money on that. So,
Perfect.
So you can make some money from scenes if you play it right.
Yeah, they can.
Most of the time, it's just throwing money into a black hole. But,
well, I mean, you still, like you say, it's nice to have, and they make as well great talking points as well, as opposed to kind of the constant feeling of your internet or your photos gathering on the internet or on hard drives rather than actually existing in some form, as kind of everything becomes a bit more digital.
Yeah, I mean, it's really nice to have. Yeah, it's nice to print stuff, and you know, I love buying other photographers' scenes and things, and I mean, you take such an insane amount of photos these days. At the moment, like the other day, I started panicking that my laptop was going to die. So I started like uploading everything to the cloud. And I'm like, so now like it's running over there. I think like it's close to 80,000 pictures now in my Lightroom cloud account. And I'm like, oh, what am I going to do with that?
And it doesn't feel like it when you're taking them. You just keep snapping, and then it's kind of, I don't know, you realize the amount of work you've given yourself to do afterwards.
Yeah, and there's so much crap, you know? It's like, you know, back in the day, you know, you would go on holiday for a week and you take one roll of film. and you come home with 10 decent photos if you were lucky. And these days you come home, you've taken 1,200 pictures, and you still have 10 decent photos.
Just wanted to talk about your sort of thought process while you're shooting, because it seems quite intuitive, almost like, and then how that feeds back into when you, like, at what point in the process do you decide, oh, okay, I'll gather these photos together to make a zine, or gather, especially with your exhibitions as well, that are almost like photo collages and from photos across multiple years. Like, how does that process work for you?
Well, I mean, I've always used like photography almost as a diary. So I think maybe the exhibition you're talking about is that one where I presented it as a visual diary, where I just like, I've tried so many times throughout my life to write a diary, but I don't really have the patience or like, you know, the self-discipline to sit down and do it every day. And I think photos work much better for me, and I can kind of look at my pictures and remember how I was feeling that day and where I was, and you know what was going on in the world, and it's kind of, and yeah, it was fun. That exhibition was in a cafe in London called Black Cat. It doesn't exist anymore, but it was. I think I just printed hundreds of photos on just on the work work printer. And you know, me and my girlfriend, now wife, and some friends, we just came there, and there was no structure. We just like put it up on the wall, and we probably put up 130 pictures in a big blob, with one giant collage picture of my friend Duncan in the middle, and so he had like a giant head in the middle, and then surrounded by loads of random pictures. And yeah, it was great. It was really, really, really fun experience, because they loved it, and they would just do what you want, you know.
That's always a nice freedom to have. Just do what you want, but also a scary one, because you're like, you have no guidance. You just have to like piece it together. Yeah, no, it is weird, and you know, we were there all the time, so that was even weirder. You know, it was like a place we hung out, so we'd go for lunch. You know, and there are my photos again, and you're like, oh, I should change that a little bit. And you know, my wife would recommend the place to people who were visiting London, and they would just go there and eat, and they're like, your face was on the wall all over the place. Is that why you recommended it? Yeah. And then I did when we moved to Copenhagen, I did another exhibition that was the similar kind of thing. Like it was completely random, no structure at all, but I decided to frame the pictures instead. So we did a big blob of pictures on a wall in our local cafe in Copenhagen. And that was also really nice. That was because then I got them all properly printed and stuff. Yeah, that one, I think I saw that one. And then there was one other one that was, I can't remember. It was almost like a group show, I think. I think it was a little bit further down on your website that looked, it wasn't as collagey from what I saw, but it might have been a collective or something.
Oh no, that was probably, I mean, there's a thing called the Photocopy Club.
Yeah.
Which is like a big thing. Or was a big thing. I think he started doing them again now. It's just like an open call, different themes, and the only rule is that you have to print it on a Xerox printer. So
cool.
And yeah, I can't remember what the guy who runs it is called, but yeah, he does really cool stuff. And there's an open call for one now, and the theme is coast, or like coastal theme.
Very
so I'm gonna apply to that one when I have time, but it's but I had no say in how that was laid out or anything. You just send those pictures in, and then you go and look at it.
Fair enough. That's kind of fun too, though, just to see what other people do with your work when you're, because you get to see. It's kind of like a different, like whenever you exhibit, you see people who come to the exhibition, and they'll say something that you're like, where did you get that idea from? Because that's not what I meant at all. But then also when you give it to someone who's then choosing how it's displayed on a wall, that's another bit of, you get to see into their mind what they're thinking about your work as well. So sometimes that's quite nice to have. Although I know some people who are like, I could never let anyone just wild with my work and do what they want with it.
I don't get that. I mean, some people are very picky with their own, very protective of their own stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm quite easygoing with with it. But I think I've been part of maybe 4 or 5 photocopy club things with different themes. So
it's very cool. I was gonna say as well, because you were saying earlier, like you lived in Britain, now you're in Sweden. Have you found different places kind of affect the way you shoot? Because you seem like someone who's like constantly taking photos, basically, like, because you have that visual diary. But do you find if you're in a different place for a while, it starts sort of almost rubbing off on you in a way?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I love London. There's so much to see, and there's, it's such a big city, and obviously I gravitate towards things that are kind of a bit grittier and a bit dirty, and London is great for that. So when I moved to Copenhagen, I struggled a bit, for example, because Copenhagen is so clean and so for lack of a better word, boring compared to London. I mean, it's beautiful, but it's very clean. But Malmo, now I'm in Malmo, and I'm enjoying, like, the grit of Malmo reminds me a bit of London at times, but on a micro scale. It's a tiny city. But of course, where you live affects what you do and how you do it. And I used to love just walking around London and just taking pictures of the same things, same streets every day. One day you find something fun, and quite often, I don't really know what I'm looking for. It can take years. I go back to photos and I go, wow, that's a cool photo I took 2 years ago. I never realized, and sometimes Instagram is all, originally it's all supposed to be about, instant things, what you're doing now. But I think more and more now I'm looking back, taking a bit of time and look back at stuff I've shot years ago and see if there's anything worth posting.
Yeah, I think it was Alex Soph who said about photography basically ages really well, and it's that thing like you said, because I think it's kind of a common from doing these interviews and just talking to photographers, they all seem to have this same experience of like photos that you sort of ignore in your Lightroom, or get film prints back and you're like, what happened there, like fuck that one, and then you go back through and you're like, oh, I forgot about this photo, but actually, like, now I like it's, why did I overlook this? And I guess part of it is like your taste change as a person, but also just like sometimes there's stuff in there, like people change and places change, and I think as well, like a little bit of nostalgia maybe kind of creeps in certain times.
Yeah, definitely. But I mean, also, it's easy for him to say. He's pretty amazing. I remember going to one of his exhibitions at the DNA or something in London. These like insanely massive prints, and it just like felt like you were there. They were so sharp. These like big forest prints. So you're like,
oh wow,
it was really cool. So, I mean, I don't expect to find my hard drive is not really like a Vivian Meyer treasure chest, but maybe there's some nice bits and pieces there.
Well, there's definitely some great pieces, because I mean your Instagram's proof of that, I assume. There's probably more that haven't been released as well, or yet to come even. It's interesting as well, because obviously I saw your Instagram first, and you mainly, at least for as far as I scroll back, it's a lot of your black and white stuff. And then I went onto your website and found sort of color and Polaroids and a sort of wider range of aesthetics, which I was wondering if that was a conscious choice, or whether you're just having a sort of very black and white period at the moment that you're kind of just into that, or...
I feel quite comfortable shooting in black and white. I don't feel like I have to think that much about it. Like, at the moment I have my camera set to like RAW and JPEG. So I mean, I have my viewfinder in black and white, so I kind of, you know, I get copies of both, a color copy and the thing, and then I choose. But most of it, it's also a bit lazy. I'm not very good at editing, and I kind of know what I'm doing. I feel like I know what I'm doing in black and white more than in color.
I'm the same way.
I tried in August to like, okay, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna just like learn. And I tried to do a month of color post, but I think I lasted 10 days, and I was like, nah, this is too stressful. I don't want it to be stressful. I just want to post some photos.
I think the thing is though, like your black and white's very effective as well. So it's sort of, and it's strange because I think a lot of people have that sort of, especially because, like, you know, Connor as well, and he was talking about that there's this sense with him that although his photography is amazing and his black and whites are really cool, but in the back of his mind, I think sometimes he has the same kind of thing that you just said about, of being like, maybe I should try and figure this color thing out. But also, I think that comes from the expectation that some people are like, black and white is somewhat lesser than color, because I guess black and white TV was worse than color TV originally, but we have this sort of weird relationship. But I think,
yeah, maybe, I don't know. It's I mean, I just like how, you know, how light is translated in, you know, in black and white. I like harsh shadows, and I like how, you know.
Yeah, and I think the way when you shoot for black and white, especially like with that sort of harsher style, because I've had the same thing of like, oh, or something like you shoot work that's very much in that style, and then someone goes, could I have a color version of that? And I'm just like, no, because it's just not gonna look like you think it's gonna look like, no matter how much time I spend in Photoshop or fiddling with it. It's just, it was designed to work with that look, if that makes sense. Yeah. Like it's two different worlds, I feel.
Yeah, I mean, it works both ways though. I think, I mean, obviously I've done a lot of color stuff as well. I love it. I love shooting film in color, for example. But some color photos just don't work at all in black and white when you try to. You know,
yeah, it goes there. Sometimes like you just end up with a sort of grey photo, if that makes sense. Yeah, and it just feels like it's not that exciting or punchy, I think is what you're like. For me, when doing black and white, that's what you want. You want something that's, yeah, punchy, which I think is probably a symptom of influence, because, you know, everyone wants to be sort of Moriyama or someone like that who had very sort of visceral feeling from their black and white.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, it adds a bit of a, I also think it, for me, I mean, because you know, I walk around and I take kind of candid shots of people and stuff, and it adds a bit of a layer of anonymity, you know, to people. Like people, I don't really necessarily want people to recognize themselves in the photos. I don't want them, you know, because sometimes you're a bit worried that things will like come across as a bit creepy. You know? You know what I mean?
relate. Like, you worry. You hear all the horror stories of a street photographer getting beat up by someone because they took their photo.
Yeah,
and things like that.
I don't know. Somehow it's almost like you're protecting yourself by making it like really high contrast, black and white, and it's like,
yeah,
you know,
because
it's art. It's not a weird voyeuristic photo of your legs. You know.
I think as well, because sometimes in color, I think people who are sort of, they look at it and they get very wrapped up in like, it's gonna sound weird, but like what the picture's actually of. So if I took a picture of someone in color, they go, oh, it's a portrait of Nick, or it's a portrait of whoever. As when you make it black and white, suddenly then they start talking about like you say, it's a bit more, even if you can clearly tell it's still you, they still start talking about it in terms of like, oh, it's a very like, it's a picture of a man, it's like different. They start talking about, you know, like grittiness and shadows and all that sort of stuff, rather than, oh look, doesn't Nick look nice in that photo? Suddenly it becomes just about a person or a figure of some sort. It's, I think, kind of the difference between, I've always kind of tried to separate out like portraiture and photos of people, because I think they're two different ballparks and exist in different ways. Referring back to the list, I wanted to also ask, are you a skateboarder by any chance? I noticed one little skate photo on your Instagram, but I didn't know whether there was some of that influence or whether it's
a skate photo on my Instagram. Oh yeah, there's actually this art exhibition going on in Malmo at the moment, where I think it's a Korean artist who's designed a skate park in the art in the gallery.
Sick.
So it's like a pool basically where you can go and skate. But I don't skate, but I went there one day with my son and just took some pictures.
Nice, cool.
I used to skate when I was a teenager, but no, I was always terrible at it. But it was a lot of fun. I still love that culture, you know. I still buy skate photo zines and things.
Yeah, I was just wondering, because what you were saying earlier about like, that's where you were, like when we first started, you were talking about just, you had a very sort of DIY ethos to like, well, I can just go save the money and print a zine, but maybe that also comes from you being around music as well, and that influence. I find the culture of those two things have a bit of crossover, and I notice.
Yeah. I mean, definitely. I mean, I've always been in bands when I was a teenager to when I was a bit older, and always been involved in the kind of punk scene, or like when I moved to London, became very involved in this little like DIY indie pop scene that was very like, you know, driven by just doing it yourself and, you know, releasing records on small labels, creating labels, making your own sleeves and fitting cut and paste and these kind of things. And I always really liked that, you know. It's and there's always great communities behind those scenes, really supportive and
a lot of cool people.
I mean, there's a bit of that in photography as well. You know, like when you start spending time on Instagram, suddenly like you kind of develop these kind of weird friendships with these people that like your photos, so you write messages and you buy their zines and
it creates a little circle. I just, it struck me because I think when you said like punk, and there's always, it comes back to, it's just that DIY thing that I've noticed certain, like you said, there's a little bit of it in photography, but there are like, there's some photographers who are very like not do it themselves, if that makes sense. Not in like not as a criticism, but I noticed that a lot of people I am meeting at the moment tend to have that sort of, I'm just going to make my own book, I'm going to do it my way, and I think that's just rad basically. And yeah, you're right, it does circle onto Instagram as well.
But it's like, why I never understood that, like, you know, fair enough. You want, it'd be great if someone could just, you know, release everything you do from when you're unknown and stuff. But, you know, then most of the time, most people would just sit around and just wait. You have their, you know, instead of just getting, do you even get rejection letters these days? I've never sent anything off to anyone, you know, on spec.
Yeah.
But you know, I've had record labels release records. I've released my own records. I've printed my own scenes. I haven't had anyone print my, like, you know, my own books or anything. I've had booklets, part of other artists' record releases and things. And I think, I mean, these days it's so cheap. Like, even if you look at how much it costs to do stuff like 20, 30 years ago, then it was really difficult to do these things. But these days, like, anyone can print. It doesn't cost anything, you know. It's ridiculous. Even if you just want to do, just to print photos, you go on these like online print shops and you get like 200, your first 200 prints for free. You know, it's like insane how cheap it is.
Yeah.
And this is across the board, like in music, it's, you know, anyone can record stuff at home, and that's what we used to do. You know, it's kind of, you don't have to go to a really expensive studio. of course, there's difference. You know, it depends on what you want the output to be like. Obviously, you might not sound like the biggest, biggest band in the world, but at least you can get your stuff out there.
Yeah, and you can start
more important than
start making
more rewarding.
Anyway. Yeah, it's my mind's just gone blank on what I just was about to say, which is always good. But yeah, it's like you say, it is becoming way more accessible, and I think with it being so accessible, you end up with a lot more cooler stuff, because there is some ideas that don't necessarily get picked up by, like you say, like a big studio or a big publisher that go unnoticed. And I think it allows for a lot of really interesting experimentation, like because there's also that critique of people getting annoyed because it's like, oh, everyone's a photographer these days, but also that's a good thing, because it means there's just more of it to kind of just feed off of, and people looking at it different ways and bringing their perspectives, which is, I mean, a fun way to look at it if you're interested in the more art side of it. But also I can understand why people who run photography businesses are running scared at the competition. But
oh yeah, of course, that's why I have no interest in being a professional photographer, because I mean, it'd be so stressful and working to set prices of how much these things are worth. I just couldn't do it, really. And
I suppose. And then also you have a bit of a collective zine in the works, which you said about.
Yeah, actually, when I moved to Malmo, I started going to this photo book club that was organized in a little cafe. Really dorky, just as dorky as it sounded. Where you would bring a photo book in and you talk about it, and pass them around, and it was a great way of finding out about like new photographers you never heard of. And also, when you move to a new city, it's nice to find these kind of things, to meet some people. And the guy who organized it, Christian, and then there was another guy who was there one day that I kind of clicked with as well, and we started talking about maybe doing something one day, and then we should just do it. And I think it was like from us deciding that we should just do something together to us having our first copy of our first zine was like, I don't know, 5-6 weeks maybe, which was pretty cool, from never having met these people before to actually doing something. So we did this thing. It's a scene called Kran, which means crane in Swedish. Too long story to explain, but first issue is 7 local photographers, including us 3. Just completely, like, no rules. Any people could just submit whatever pictures they wanted. There's some really random stuff, but it was really nice to be like a curator, to decide what goes in and in what order and stuff, and it was cool. So we've done 1 issue. We printed 50 copies. They were gone within 24 hours. So we were like, oh, we better do another one then. So I think we've just sent off the 2nd issue to be printed. 7 new local photographers again. Same thing, no rules. So that should be back in the next week or so, and then we have an open call for the 3rd issue, which is summer pictures, but like no boring summer pictures. We tried to write a theme, but we didn't. We couldn't really. So it's just no boring pictures, and like the subheading was like meat, love, and chaos, or something, So we're getting some good submissions from that. We have one guy from Kazakhstan sent in some very strange summer pictures.
I can imagine that's very different stuff.
So now I'm looking forward to that. So we're we're going to go to Copenhagen Zine Fest in October and launch that third issue there.
Nice.
And then we've all done, I mean, they've all have a history of releasing stuff themselves as well. So we'll bring our own things. I'm planning to print 3 more issues of Pictures Make Great Pets before Copenhagen Zine Fest.
Awesome.
We'll see how that goes. But it's like, you have to be ambitious, right? You have to aim high.
That's that sounds really cool. And it's like 3 zines plus a group zine. That's when did you say the zine festival was? That's
it's in, I think it's mid October.
Okay, yeah, so about 2 months from when we're recording this, or a month and a bit. So that's ambitious. You're right, but that's going to be cool to see those go together. Is there any sneak information you can release on here, or is it a lock and key secret about what's going into these 3 issues?
Oh no, I was thinking like I haven't really done anything about my time in Copenhagen, so I was going to do something similar, more like a diary scene from Copenhagen, and then do one from Malmo. So just 2 location-based ones. And then I ordered a bunch of those old, photo albums, like slip-in photo albums that you used to use back in the day. Ordered a bunch of those. I have like 36 pockets, so I was going to print, I think I ordered 10 albums, so I was going to print like 500 photos and put them in randomly in those albums and make like a cover for it.
Oh, that's super cool. So they're all a little bit different and all.
Yeah. And the only theme on those ones were going to be that it was kind of holiday snaps, but as in just pictures that are taken away in a place where I didn't live. You know, I think because I think it affects what you take photos of as well when you're out, which is why I try to go away as much as possible as well, you know, to like
keep it fresh.
Try to look at things differently and stuff.
Keep renewing it. No, that's super cool. Is there anything else in your world that the people need to know about before we sort of wrap up?
No, I mean, we haven't really talked much about like influences and stuff. I think what were you saying, like now I have 2 small kids, so I don't really have time to watch movies and read books and listen to music as much as I used to. But that is very much like where my whole way of thinking about the world comes from. I studied film at university, and I've always been like a massive film geek, and and a lot of, if you were to look into like my favorite movies and stuff, you definitely see why I'm drawn to the kind of things I take photos of and stuff. And the same with music. Obviously, it's a lot of punk. It's a lot of, I think the red thread through everything is that it's not much escapism. It's like everything is quite, it's a kind of, for lack of a better word, a realist take on. It's just everyday life. It's feelings and emotions and, just things to look at. Like my favorite authors are very much into that kind of thing as well. And I think if I have to give an advice to anyone, I think it's just like watch everything, read everything, listen to everything. But I think also as I wrote in one of the last scenes I did, there was always there's a quote from Henry Miller where he said like if a book only has one great line in it, it's worth seeking out, which I always thought was really nice. And I used to apply that to movies and stuff as well. If there was one cool thing in it, and it's worth sitting through this shitty movie because there's a really great bit in it. And then like one of my favorite modern authors, this American guy called Adam Gennady, he wrote like that life's too short to like waste on books you don't enjoy. And I was like, that's true as well. So then I stopped sitting through crappy movies. I think I think yeah, so. Henry Miller is probably no. Henry Miller is all right. He's okay. It's true for movies, but books I can't do. I can't read boring books anymore. I don't have the patience. I'm rambling now. I didn't know where I started.
So good. You said about influences, and it's interesting to see like someone come on and talk about influences and talk about something other than photographers, because obviously that's the obvious one to talk about as a photographer. So it's interesting, and like
photographers is also like, I mean, that's really important as well. You know, it's great to. I love photo books, and it's a great way of learning how people lay out their images and stuff, and it's. I think people are a bit scared of like wearing their influences on their sleeve these days. People worry about being called copycats or whatever, but we're all it's 2024. Most things have been done, influences. It's okay to be influenced by stuff.
I think the thing is, it's like some people because everyone wants to be original, but everything's been done. But I think when you have such a if like what you said, it's like read everything, watch everything, listen to everything, because you'll start combining different influences. It's like cooking. We've cooked everything on the planet, but people are still coming up with new recipes and dishes. You just have to keep mixing things together, and that's where you create something new. It's because there's someone who, and especially now with things being so like, everyone's a photographer, so you could take someone who like everyone's seen this photo to some weird print you saw in a random cafe one time shot by someone who you'd never heard of, and mix those to do, and suddenly you have something totally new to kind of bounce off. So I think influences are, like you say, what makes you as a person, not even just an artist. It all has to mix together.
And I think it's also important to not be too protective about your things. I think people worry about, like, people stealing their ideas and these kind of things. I've always been kind of happy when people ask if bands and stuff ask if they can use photos that I've taken of them for stuff. I've never really set any demands on it. And, sometimes it's a really amazing surprise what happens. There's this band I really love called Martha from Durham. And they've done a bunch of records, but for one of the records, they asked if they could use some of the photos I'd taken of them. And I was like, yeah, sure. And I just shared my Martha folder in Lightroom with them, and just let's see what happens. And then I went to see them at their show, and they did, I was like, cool, I get a copy of their album. I'll see if they used any of my photos. And then it's like, oh, wow, it's like a massive...
damn. Poster, that's awesome.
Which is like, yeah, sweet. They're kids with my photo on their bedroom wall. That's like
wicked.
That's pretty cool. So,
yeah,
I think it's important to be willing to like just give of yourself, and not be too protective, and things will come around.
Yeah, and in unexpected ways as well. Like, and that applies to like sending it to people to use, and like what we were talking about earlier with exhibitions, like having someone else arrange, or like on the flip side, like when you received work from these 7 different photographers, and you were saying like it's a totally different experience to then decide the order of someone else's work that isn't your own, because you don't have that, I remember when this happened, because you're just seeing just the photo. So you'll pair it with something that they would have been like never have thought of, because they have almost that thing of being too close to it, which kind of gets in the way.
And it's a really nice experience to have that, like that curating thing, and like sit in a group where like decide where pictures go, and you learn a lot from just looking at other people's work, as well. And
how did you go about that? I'm curious, because some people, when it comes to making books, like, did you do it all digitally, or did you get prints of everything and like lay it out on a table and kind of?
No, I mean, we asked people to send in between 10 and 20 pictures, and then the three of us we put them in a drive, and we sat down at home and like kind of had an idea which ones were our favorites, and then we met up in the pub and kind of just narrowed it down to like 6-7 pictures per person, and then it went from there, and then we picked. So like I did the layout on the first issue, and Christian is doing the layout on this one, and trying to give each other like free hands, but it's really hard when you're like really protective and you're used to doing everything yourself. So I'm like driving him mad with like, oh, maybe the font is a little bit too big. Maybe you can make this picture a little bit smaller. So I'm quiet now. I'm like, just send it off and print. It's fine. It's great. It looks really good.
Yeah, because that's what I was going to ask with three of you being involved. That must lead to some maybe some big battles over certain creative decisions. And
we haven't had that yet, actually. I think everyone's just really happy that, you know, that we're doing stuff. I think we all got a big kick out of getting this first one out so quickly, because, you know, because anyone who's worked with other people know that sometimes, you know, projects just can take forever, and there's something in the way, and
time goes on, and life and stuff.
And when you're a grown-up, you know, you don't have all this time anymore. You're not a student, you're working, you have kids, and we all have kids, and, you know, there's very few hours of the day left to do creative things. And so I think we were really excited that we're doing it, and we're like, oh, we have to do another one and another one. So it's exciting.
It's a great feeling. I mean, are they available online just for people listening if they want to keep an eye out, or are you pretty exclusive to the fairs and in person? Yeah.
I mean, it's the first one, I mean, it's gone. It's sold out. Obviously, the second one will be launched on the 5th of September, so then people can order it if they want. It's it's just we call Kran, Kran, and Fotozine, but the Swedish way, so FOTO. Kran Fotozine.
Nice. Awesome.
You'll find it. I don't think there's that many Kran things out there. I'm sure you can write in the description.
Yeah, we'll leave it down below for people. But I think that seems like a good place to wrap up, unless you've got any burning final thoughts or anything. But it's been good. No,
I don't think so. I hope I've added something of some sort of value to the
100%. 100%. I mean, we've been sort of umming and ahhing about having you on for a while, so I'm glad I got round to messaging you, basically.